What's up, y'all? This is Revolutionary Fitness Radio, episode 36.
The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is here.
Welcome to another episode of Revolutionary Fitness Radio. I'm your host, Sean Garcia, and this is the podcast dedicated to bringing health, fitness, and wellness to the people. Our goal, empowering you all to understand your body, treat it well, and give you the tools to become an agent of change in your community through helping others. Let's move together.
The perseverance of a rebel, I drop heavier levels, is unseen or heard. A king with words, can't knock the hustle, but I've seen street dreams deferred. Dark spots in my mind where the scene occurred. Some say I'm too deep, I'm in too deep to sleep. Through me, Muhammad will forever speak. Greet brothers with handshakes on ghetto landscapes, where a man is determined by how much a man makes. Pop cognacs and spit old raps with young cats with cigarettes in their ear. Niggerish they appear under the FUBU is a guru, that's untapped. Wanna be in the rap race but ain't ran one lap. Ran so far from the streets that you can't come back. You tripping with nowhere to unpack.
So I want to wish everybody a happy new year. This is our first episode of 2015. And of course, you already hear somebody in the background. We have our special RevFit Q&A sessions, and we have Osiris Flores on the line. How you doing, Osiris?
I'm feeling great, bro.
Happy New
Happy
Year.
New Year. Happy New Year to you and your new family.
Yes. It's been crazy. It's been crazy the past couple of weeks. And you just came back from a trip in Japan where you spent New Year's. How was that?
I did, bro. You know, it was honestly absolutely amazing. You know, it was the first time I spent New Year's away from my family. New Year's is my favorite holiday, so it's always a tradition to be with my family. So when I told my mom I wasn't going to be there for New Year's, she thought I was kidding. She gave me the crazy look. But on a serious note, it really was something else to experience a different culture. As someone who, you know, since very young, I've always been interested in creating a better society, something that's better than what we have. That's why I've always been involved in, you know, everything that I've been involved with, obviously including RevFit. And it really is amazing to see a society that's built on such strong traditions and strong culture of respect and caring for your neighbor, for your next one, your sister and your brother, because, you know, regardless of the fact that they have a similar economic system, you know, capitalism over there in Japan, and of course now I'm speaking. The only place we went is Tokyo, so I'm only talking about Tokyo. But yes, they have capitalism, and inherently capitalism doesn't work, but Tokyo gave me an example that, you know, the system plays a big role, but really how people treat one another says a lot, because Tokyo is the cleanest city I've ever seen in my life. I'm talking about, we went even into what they consider the ghettos, and it was just nowhere near what you would even envision what a ghetto is, you know. So it was really eye-opening and really something exciting to see, something refreshing as someone who is working towards creating something better, you know.
That's awesome. And so obviously this show today, we're talking about setting successful resolutions for the new year. So I guess my first question to you is, you know, do you have any New Year's resolutions, or were you inspired to have any resolutions being out in the Japanese culture?
You know, I'll be honest with you. I don't set resolutions. I don't think I ever have. I've always just had like ongoing goals that I want to achieve. You know, a perfect example, last year I set out to make sure that I rank up in Kung Fu, and which I did. You know, I think I hold more, I hold higher ground, just self-improvement more than reaching any specific goal. So to be honest, I don't set resolutions. How about you?
Um, I mean, I guess I'm kind of similar. Not that I don't set resolutions, but I kind of, whenever New Year's is coming around, I start doing reflection many weeks prior. You know, so like really in like November, December, I started doing a lot of reevaluation of the work that I was doing and kind of where I wanted to see myself in a couple of months or years.
Hmm.
So really going into New Year's was just like another day, and it wasn't like the start of something fresh. Like I always hear people say, "Oh, I can't wait for New Year's so I can start doing this or start doing that." But really the kind of the motivational factor of a new year coming upon, I've always been upon, in the I always felt like if you have an inspiration to do something come New Year's, why not start it now? So I
Right,
started
right.
my quote unquote resolutions, 5 6 weeks ago, and that's one of my major themes in my personal life. It's kind of, I don't want to feel like when New Year's comes around is a different day and something different's
Hmm.
gonna happen, because then I'm setting myself up kind of for failure. But we'll talk about that in the show. I think we can go straight into it. If this is their first time listening to a Q&A show, basically the way the Q&A shows work is that Osiris kind of gathers questions from our different social media outlets and, on a specific topic. So we set the topic a couple weeks in advance, and then Osiris kind of, gets the questions. Either they're submitted to, our email, or they're tweeted to us, or Osiris kind of reaches out to people in our community and asks them the question, or rather tells them the topic and asks them if they have any questions. And of course, different ways that you can reach out to us is obviously through Facebook, through Twitter is a major one. You can also hit us up via YouTube and Tumblr and Google Plus. I mean, we're on so many different social medias these days. You can actually go to our website, revolutionaryfitness.org/connect, and you'll find all the different social media outlets that we're on. And there's also a little submission form on our website, revolutionaryfitness.org, which will have the upcoming topic for that month, and you can leave a question there as well. But Osiris, you got a bunch of questions lined up, right?
I do, man. And as I mentioned on Twitter, this gathering these questions, I had the most fun gathering these questions because maybe everyone on the list, but definitely everyone who I reached out to had the same question. How do I stick to these resolutions? And I think that that's the question that everyone asks. Um, and what we're gonna tackle today. So let's start with Dari Rodriguez. She's from the Bronx, and she asked this via Twitter. And do you think that the mentality changes in the approach to these resolutions when you're working towards a resolution versus a goal?
I think the way that we define resolutions or goals is really a personal thing. A resolution for one person can be like, kind of like a new challenge. A resolution for another can be a lifestyle change, like you were talking about. So I think we shouldn't get so much caught up in trying to define, what we think others mean by this. But I think what happens at this time of year, or at the start of a new year, a new calendar year, is that we begin a process of self-reflection. And especially when it comes to health and fitness, we, evaluate where we are currently coming to the end of the calendar year, where we are, and we make aspirations for where we want to be in a couple months or in the coming year. And so, however you define it doesn't really matter. It's more so how you plan around it. If you make this commitment for some change, some lifestyle change, especially when it comes to health and fitness, because this can be a very challenging process and a very emotional process. You really got to structure a plan around it. And so that's going to be kind of a ongoing theme throughout the conversation today, is not so much, how to set the goals, but how do you start formulating a really well-structured plan that will set you up for success?
That's awesome, bro. Because that's actually the point that if you didn't make it, I was gonna make sure that I made. That is how do we make sure that it's not the goals that we set, but the work that we put towards it.
Right.
Because we put so much focus on the end game that we lose track of the process itself. So I'm so glad that we started off on the same foot here.
Yeah.
So Carla Reyes from Harlem, she submitted this question via Facebook. She asks, "What are some ways to determine if you are on the right track towards fulfilling your resolutions?"
Well, I mean, once you start making the commitments or the resolutions of whatever you want to happen in the new year and in the coming months, there needs to be an ongoing evaluation. Just like anything in life, whether it's work or, anything, you have to have an ongoing evaluation. And the only way you can have an ongoing evaluation is if you set baseline measurements. So there has to be a starting point, right? Because if we're trying to get to an end point, and we have to define what our starting point is so that along the way, we can measure our success towards that end game, that goal. And so, for health and fitness, to determine what your starting point is it really is based off of what your goals are. If your goals are to lose weight, or if your goals are to get stronger, or if your goals are to, achieve a certain obstacle, maybe you run a 5K race this year, you have to evaluate where you are today. So that can be, weighing yourself is the most conventional way, but I would say more accurately doing your body fat measurements, getting measurements of your body with a measuring tape. If you're running for some kind of obstacle like a 5K race, how much can you run today? And once you have that starting point and you have those starting measurements, then, you really should be measuring your success towards your goal every 4 to 6 weeks. And the reason we say every 4 to 6 weeks in the health and fitness world is because if you're trying to make a qualitative change in your body, it takes around 4 to 6 weeks. Now, habits, they take around 3 to 4 weeks to change a habit. But to make a real, visually qualitative change in your body, whether it's losing weight, getting stronger, whatever, it usually takes around 4 to 6 weeks for the body to make the proper adaptations to whatever your program or your plan of attack is. So once you set your end game, your goal, you get your baseline measurements, then every 4 to 6 weeks, you should be doing a reevaluation. How much progress have you made towards that goal? Have you derailed from that goal? And if you have, that's not the end of the world. Plans are made, and sometimes you do well with them and sometimes you don't. But how can you readjust at that junction to then make some more forward progress? And of course, never being hard on yourself in that process, because there will be gains and there will be failures, and that's just life. And it's an ongoing process.
Why not the scale, but rather the measuring of body fat?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. Why is our go-to not the scale? I mean, we preach this very hard, and there's a couple reasons. One, because the scale is not that accurate. You really can fluctuate in terms of body weight anywhere to 5 pounds in a given day based off of your water consumption, your sodium consumption, what you ate the day prior, how many hours since you ate last. There's so many variables that can really, make your weight fluctuate between this 5 pound range. So you might be 130 pounds today and 135 pounds tomorrow, but then the following day be back to 125. And so it's not a very reliable kind of measurement. So that's one. It's not reliable, so why are we even using it? But more importantly, I think in our society where there's so much body image kind of garbage put out there, this kind of, bodyism that you have to look a certain way or you have to be a certain weight to somehow be in shape or to be fit. I think that's a bad place to start. If you want to feel better, it's not about losing a certain amount of weight. It's about being able to move better. It's about being able to feel more comfortable in your skin. And so that can be at any weight, really. It's really relative. So we don't want you to get caught up in your weight. We want you more so to get caught up in the numbers that matter. And that's, how many push-ups can you do? How much is your body fat percentage? How much of your weight is actually muscle versus fat? How do you feel? Like, are you energized? That's what we're more concerned about. It's not about you should look this way or you should be in this certain form or you should look like a magazine cover, because that is tying into a lot of hateful, kind of damaging ideas that are not helpful for our society and really are, in terms of culture, not culturally accurate, because no one looks the same. We're all from different parts of the world and different backgrounds, and our bodies look different, and that's a beautiful thing.
That's a great answer. I'm glad that I asked. Thank you, bro. We have a number of questions. I'm gonna keep moving, or else we're gonna be here for like 3 hours.
Nice.
So, but thank you for that. Nancy from Washington Heights, and she's here via Palestine. She asked through Facebook. I think it's a really good question. Is it easier to stick to your New Year's resolutions if you team up with people who have the same goals, or does it take away from your self-control and mental state?
So we are big advocates, obviously, of community fitness and getting, supporters in your community and really linking up with community. And I think in everything in life, community is important, but it could be a double-edged sword. And I'll kind of break down why. So we want people to link up with others because of the support apparatus, right? When you aren't motivated, maybe you can reach out to your friends who you're going through this endeavor with and try to get some peer motivation. Maybe you all inspire one another in a workout. So maybe you're working out together and feed off of each other's energy and all these great things. But the downside of kind of like teaming up with others is if you don't create a kind of internal independent spirit or internal independent motivation, when they fall short, you'll fall short. And so you don't want to fall into that pitfall. There needs to be this kind of spirit like I'm linking up with others for that supportive apparatus and to have fun and to motivate one another. But if they fall short, I'm still going to stay strong because I have a collective commitment, but I also have a personal commitment. So I think there has to be a fine balance of that. And I would advocate that you do work out with your community members and you will stick to your resolutions better if you have some kind of support, because times do get hard, but you always have to have that internal motivation because nothing can replace that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, we are social beings, so of course it's gonna help, but you definitely need that. Who's gonna motivate the rest of the team in a sense. So if imagine that the entire team's thinking that way, then the team is gonna be stronger.
Right, exactly.
Cynthia from the Bronx, she asked through Facebook, and I'm gonna openly say that this is almost a leading question because, going back to that conversation about what do you call it? Do you call it a resolution? You call it a goal? In the sense it doesn't really matter. But she asked, instead of people making New Year's resolutions, why don't people create new habits? So I think what she's trying to get at is it tougher to create habits than sticking to these resolutions?
Right, definitely. And I think when it comes to health and fitness resolutions, we are talking about a habitual change. We're talking about a lifestyle change. So we definitely have to have that in the back of our minds. But what her question kind of also triggers in me is I kind of want to speak to it now, is that some people are critical of others for making New Year's resolutions. And I think that's also, we shouldn't go on that extreme. Like, yeah, there's a lot of people who make New Year's resolutions and it's kind of like a fad and people don't really stick to them, and a lot of people fall short of their commitments to their resolutions, and it seems like you go into the gym and on January 2nd there's mad people in the gym, and then February 1st they're all gone. But we shouldn't be critical of people for aspiring to be better and to make these resolutions. So I think, yeah, we want to make habitual change, but if we call them resolutions and if this time of the year sparks it within the individual, we shouldn't knock it. But we should tell people like, all right, you're making this New Year's resolution. That is great. But, what are you going to do to stick to it? What's going to take you to February, March, and beyond? And if we have that conversation with our peers and our friends, I think that, we can take their motivation of New Year's and these New Year's resolutions to the next level.
Yeah, definitely. Is that whole holier than thou? It's like, well, you're calling it that, but I call it this. Okay,
Yeah,
fine.
exactly.
It's like, okay, well, how about instead of paying attention to what you're calling, and it's like, okay, well, how can I assist you in that? How can I be a support system for you to do that?
Yo,
You know, and
on a side note, this reminds me, I had a conversation recently about parenting with this anarchist. and he was, and so obviously I'm a socialist. He's an anarchist. So there's differences in approach, but the end game that we were talking about in terms of like creating good homes and parenting was the same thing. And I was like, all right, I don't care. You can call it whatever you want to call it. We can call it socialism, anarchism. It doesn't matter. Where we want to be is the same place. So let's just strategize on how to get there and not get caught up in the words, because the words are super secondary.
Very true. Chris Rock, one of my funniest things Chris Rock has said, he's definitely said a lot. He's like, anybody who makes up their mind before hearing an issue is an idiot. All right. Let's keep going. So Samantha from Espinosa from Astoria, Queens, she asked through Facebook, if your resolution is to resist sweet temptations, what healthy sweets other than fruits are there to help stick into this resolution? And Mabel Rodriguez from the Bronx, she asked a very similar question via Facebook. She asked, what are some winter alternatives to food that can keep you going in the cold months? Because she was saying that in the cold months you want to eat, comforting food. You know what I'm getting at. So they're both asking similar questions as to more on the nutrition side. What can I do to make sure that I stick to this resolution of eating healthier
and kind of avoid these temptations?
Right.
Well, I think I think they're very similar questions, but I can answer them separately. And I think in terms of the sweets, I think you have to first identify when you like to eat sweets. Is it when you're home at the crib, watching TV late at night? Is that when you're eating sweets? Or is it at the workplace when you're stressed out and you see someone else snacking on cookies, you start snacking on cookies? So identify what time of the day you're really munching. If it's all hours of the day, then obviously it's all hours of the day. But whatever those hours are, make sure that you have some kind of sweet, healthy alternative. And obviously, the number one sweet, healthy alternatives comes in the form of fruits. So make sure you have some apples and oranges or raisins or whatever it is that you like. That's a nice plant-based, sweet kind of tasting substance. Have that nearby during the hours that you usually are munching. Like, for instance, late at night, I love to munch, and I'll find like little chocolate pieces or, like crazy stuff. Ice cream. Everyone knows I'm a ice cream fiend. But if I have some apples that I can get access to or some oranges, I'll just munch on one or two of those, and that really will, get the taste buds what they needed. Or I'll also take some tea and I'll put like a nice little scoop of honey in there, some raw honey, and that's a great alternative as well. So that's how I would answer the sweets. Is first you have to identify when you're eating them, and then make sure you have healthy alternatives on hand. And in terms of indulging during the winter months, this can be very difficult because during the winter, either we're not very active, so we're indoors a lot, and that leads to a lot of temptation. We're not moving, you're inclined to eat. That's just something that's inherent, especially in these stressful societies where we do a lot of stress eating. So being mindful of that, you have to make sure that you have, again, healthy stuff to snack on. So do you have healthy fats like avocados and nuts that are really gonna, hit that hearty place, but at the same time not pack on the pounds? Maybe you want something really hot. So you make a nice soup that can last you throughout the week, and maybe, every day throughout the week in the evening hours, you just heat up that soup, or you bring that soup to work, whatever it is, to really hit the spot. But again, it's all about planning. If you just leave it up to whatever you can get access to, then you're going to make bad decisions. And that's just the reality, because we live in a society where things are very expensive, and the inexpensive stuff is usually not the healthiest stuff. So if we leave it up to, society will dictate what we should eat, and we never want to leave it up to society because we don't live in a good society.
Yeah, that it almost reminds me of like who you surround yourself with. That saying. So it's like what you surround yourself with is what you're gonna put in your body. But just to do Samantha right, she was actually going for what sweets other than fruits. which I think is a little tougher because even people who I know eat healthy find, well, I want to be able to. I have a sweet tooth. How do I do it properly? So, something like cacao, like raw cacao that you can find is good, and even like those ginger candies or ginger, like raw ginger, not raw ginger, excuse me. What do they call it? Ginger snaps or something
Yeah,
like
like
that?
ginger snaps. Yeah.
Right. Like I think that's more what she's after. What others can you come up with?
Well, like I was saying, like the raw honey is really important. If you drink some tea with some raw honey, I mean, raw honey is super sweet and is gonna hit the spot, but is also super nutritious. You can also add stevia to your coffee or tea. Stevia is a nice source of sweetener and is healthy, plant-based. And then of course you can get maple syrup. You want to get grade B maple syrup, and you can add that again to like a tea or a coffee, and those are going to be some great sweets alternatives to fruits. But also too, I mean, you have to also evaluate, why do you want so many sweets, because that's not really natural either. And it might be because you're getting so many sweets in currently that you have so many temptations. So you might see over time, as you start reducing your access to the bad sweets, that you'll regulate that sweet tooth a little bit more, and it won't be as constant.
The good thing is that about you and I is that when we're in a wavelength, we don't have to speak. When you have cravings, it's your body asking for a specific nutrient. So if you have this constant craving for sweets, then you have to evaluate: are you getting enough? Is your body getting enough of the proper amount of nutrients, of all the nutrients?
Definitely.
And I think it's important to say that the more plant strong or the more veggies and fruits you include in your plate, the more your body is going to ask for it, and the less is going to ask for the processed sweets that are being used to kind of fulfill this other need that the body's really asking for.
Definitely.
So I wanted to make that point.
Well, and also too, on that point, you make me think about it. Don't feel bad though if you're eating really good and then you you eat something bad. I mean, don't feel bad if 80 to 90% of your diet is good and you're eating really good and righteous. Don't be so hard on yourself if you eat a piece of Snickers or whatever the heck you eat. Don't feel like, oh my God, I've ruined everything, because it's not that serious. Life goes on. It's if it becomes a repetitive pattern and you can't get out of that pattern, that's when it's a bad thing. But if you're already getting in a good flow of eating healthy and then you eat some junk every once in a while, don't stress it.
Bro, in Tokyo, the food out there is just absolutely amazing. I'm talking about everything you eat, you're gonna just love. It was one of those things. But one of the things that I found out there that you just don't find over here, I've never seen it. I never have. Maybe somebody knows how to find them, but I never have. They have green tea Kit Kats.
Yeah, you can get those in the Japanese markets out here, but you can't get them
went in on them.
That's so good, yeah.
Strawberry Kit Kats, yo, it was just way too good. So it's just to say that yes, there's nothing wrong with enjoying if it's not the norm or if it's not the everyday thing,
For sure. So let's take a quick break, and then we'll be back and we'll keep digging in on these questions.
Cool, let's do it.
All right, cool.
Barrel talk to him. Let him try to understand. Let him try that.
My life is all I have. My rhymes, my pen, my pad. And I done made it through the struggle, don't judge me. What you say now won't budge me. Cause where I come from, so often people you grew up with are laying in a coffin. But I done made it through the pain and strife. It's my time now, my world, my life.
It's based on lighting, loading guns, telling my lawyers to get the case gone. I need the bills that the presidents got their face on, so I can switch my residence. Get a truck in the Lex, check. I no longer have to wait for 'em. I made a couple ends, lost a couple friends. I light a cause never will a struggle end. So you can judge a but you ain't got it, you ain't in the road. So you really can't budge it. You ought to love a for the fact that it's my world and my life, but still I'm a rugged. They say you bugging it, I'm a thuggin'. You talking bull, then kick it with another. I got a bigger bed and I need it covered.
All right, y'all. So we're back here on Revolutionary Fitness Radio. We're doing a Q&A session on how to stick to your New Year's resolutions, and we're joined today by Osiris Flores, who's been gathering the questions from all over the social media world. And I haven't heard these questions prior to this show, so they're all kind of being thrown on me, and we're just freestyling and answering the questions the best that we can. So Osiris, you got some more questions lined up, right?
Yeah, let's keep going with Mabel because she asked two good questions. So then the second one that she asked is what's usually the point when people start to give up on resolutions and mainly why?
It's funny when it comes to health. It's not funny, but it's kind of funny because I've been working in the health and fitness world for so long that it's really, you see the patterns, and it's not funny because the reality is that people fail very quickly. But it is funny because it's like, damn, like people don't realize that they're setting themselves up to fail so quickly. I mean, it was like very like mind blowing the first 2 years that I worked in a fitness facility, and I started seeing this pattern of the New Year's resolution folks coming in and then just disappearing overnight. So really, statistics show when it comes to health and fitness goals that the majority of people, we're talking 80 to 90% of people, fail at their New Year's resolutions within the first 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
The first 2 weeks, people fail at their New Year's resolutions. And, that's kind of a staggering number, but if you work in the gym, you'll see it. You'll see, like, in January, there's a bunch of people who flood into the gym, people who sign up for memberships, and they're paying for a whole year contract, paying close to $1,000 for that 1 year of membership, and they'll come for a few weeks and then they'll just disappear. And there's a couple reasons why it happens. Hopefully, in the questions coming up, we'll be able to answer some of those reasons. But I would say the first two major reasons I would just touch upon is, one, people make commitments before they have the real hard conversation about whether they can keep those commitments. So people just think, oh, I'll make a financial commitment and somehow that's going to motivate me. That's not how it works. When you're trying to change your lifestyle, you really have to have that heart-to-heart conversation with yourself that you want to make some real change and that you're committed to it and that you're going to make some sacrifice to make that change. And I think the second error that people make when it comes to health and fitness resolutions is that they make their resolutions way too big. It's too big of an obstacle to conquer. So when they don't reach that, when they're not successful at meeting that challenge, it's failure, and they're hard on themselves. They give up altogether. Like, you'll get these people who literally they haven't worked out in like 6 months, maybe even 6 years. And now they're telling themselves, oh, I've made this commitment to the gym, or I made this commitment to a personal trainer, so now I'm going to work out 3 to 6 times a week. What? How? How are you going to go from not working out at all for the past 6 months to 6 years to overnight now working out 6 days a week? It doesn't happen. I think people are living an illusion. It doesn't happen. You really have to make a change that's over time. It has to be small, and it has to be realistic, and it has to be something that you measure. So I think those are the two biggest ones that people reach. But again, most people fail in their first 2 weeks, and I think those are the two leading reasons.
Yeah, it just goes back to the lack of planning. It's just like, how can you drop so much money down and you still haven't even made a plan to how you're going to achieve this goal that you're setting yourself for,
Right. Well, and also lack of understanding too, because I think many people, especially in working class communities, are not really educated on health and fitness. So when they're trying to make health and fitness changes in their life, they don't have the education to really do that. They think, oh, I'll follow this fad diet, or I'll follow this, personal trainer. And I'll tell you straight up, most of those fad diets and most of those personal trainers don't know what they're talking about. And they're just feeding you a lot of garbage to get your money, especially around New Year's. You go to the gym, they'll say anything to you to get your money around New Year's. So don't fall into that trap. But I think it's this lack of education that misleads people into thinking that health and fitness is just something that can be transformed overnight.
Because of Instagram nowadays, you don't even have to be at the gym anymore for you to see this. I think that if people for the next month, if our audience just pays attention to their Instagram, they may see those I'm in the gym pictures go down a lot more.
Yeah, yeah, without a doubt.
All right, so let's keep going. Sister from the Bronx, her name is Elizabeth Sanchez, and she asked me actually through Twitter. And it's not exactly a how do you stick to resolutions question, but I still feel like it's a good question to ask. And she says, why do people make resolutions to help themselves more than making resolutions to help others?
This is a great question. And I think everyone needs to ask themselves this question. You know, when New Year's rolls around and you want to, better yourself and be a better person in the new year, part of that is not doing only the introspection, but figuring out how you can make a contribution to society as a whole and better everyone else around you. I read a really cool article recently about how, a lot of folks are making resolutions for their health and fitness, about how they want to be healthier and fit, but, they haven't even thought about what the food system is like in their children's schools. Like, how can you say you want to eat better, but then not even think about what kind of food is being served at your child's school? And again, it's not to place blame and attack people, but it's also, we have to, in this new year, in this transformation process, we have to not only think about what's better for us, but what's better for those around us. So I think this is a great question. I think it's, the answer is kind of obvious. You should be thinking about your society and thinking about your contribution to society. And it shouldn't just be about what you're going to do to better yourself, but, what are you going to actively do to better those around you?
Yeah, that's awesome. It made me think about my recent trip to Tokyo because I'd never seen the high level of social responsibility as a people. As not walking around with food is something that they implement and people just happily do out there, but not because of anything else, but simply because they understand that the more you walk around with something you're going to throw on the floor, the more you will. So they have a social responsibility because they understand that they want to maintain a clean city. Then what can I do? What part can I do? What's my role as an individual for the better of the collective? And I think that social responsibility is something that we lack here in our society a lot.
Well, and not only thinking about what you can do for society, but how can you tie in your personal goals to that of society's goals. For instance, I'm a big advocate of people publicizing their process. So if you're going through a personal transformation of losing weight, of getting stronger, whatever, I'm a big advocate of you tracking it online on one of these, apps that track fitness, or MyFitnessPal that tracks your nutritional intake, or blogging. I'm a big advocate of that because not only is it creating social responsibility to your peers, but you're also in turn inspiring others around you because you're explaining your process, and people who might be able to relate to you can now, learn some lessons and the good and the bad from your experience. So how can you make your experience more social, I think is something we need to think about as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, bro. Great point. Let's keep going. So Daddy Sanchez, no relation to Elizabeth, our last question, from the Bronx. She asked through Facebook, what are some possible resources to help people making resolutions, people who are making resolutions attain their goals?
Oh my God. I mean, these days there's so many resources online. There's so many places that you can go on health and fitness knowledge, and it's pretty amazing time that we live in. It's really exciting, and I think we need to, find the resources that work for us. I can give recommendations. Obviously, I would say go check out revolutionaryfitness.org because we're putting out more content than ever. We're putting out 3 to 4 blogs a week on just this topic. So definitely check us out, and, check out anyone else on the web who, really speaks to you and who you feel like you can relate to. There's tons of stuff out there. I would say the avenues to get the most inspiration for working out and fitness would probably be Instagram being one of the big ones, because Instagram really provides this visual motivation. You can really see people going through their process. I mean, you join any of these monthly challenges and you can see people going through the evolution on a daily basis, and that's really empowering. And I think Pinterest is another great resource. You can go on Pinterest and really within 5 minutes be engulfed with so many resources from different health and fitness experts around the world. And it's really centralized and it's really fun because it's visual and it's easy to navigate because you could just click through to different topics and all that kind of stuff. But you know, at the end of the day, there's tons of resources. You just got to find the ones that work for you. And I would say, you know, Revolutionary Fitness, what we try to do is that we try to provide health and fitness through the lens of working people, mostly people of color, you know, who live in communities who may not have access to, you know, expensive equipment or really expensive, you know, food. So, you know, we really try to speak to that audience. So maybe that's something that our listeners can relate to, and you can find some good resources on there.
Cool, man. So the next question, if you heard it without me telling you who it was, you know exactly who asked it. But for our audience's sake, I'm going to let them know that this was asked by Ben Becker out in Queens via text. And he started off by saying, Gramsci rejected New Year's celebrations and resolutions as undialectical, pointless, bourgeois crap. Right? Of course. Yeah. So then the question is, are resolutions a constructive or counterproductive way of thinking about the process of change?
Leave it to Ben. So thank you, Ben, for this loaded question. So if people don't know who Gramsci is, I mean, we're talking about an Italian revolutionary Marxist who spent most of his life in prison writing his revolutionary thoughts. But in any case, I think he is right that it is a bourgeois construct in the sense that, you know, I mean, there's a lot of hoopla put into New Year's, and there's also a lot of corporate interest put into New Year's. So, you know, sign up for your gym membership, you know, fall into this fitness fad, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's post-holidays, so buy this and buy that to support your New Year's. And so there's a lot of stuff that you should avoid, you know, a lot of, you know, feeding into the beast that you should avoid. But that being said, I think that we should not knock this period in the year where people are going through a process of self-reflection. Now, should that happen at different points in the year? Yeah. I mean, you can select whatever point in the year that you want to do that, or it could be multiple times a year. But the process of reflection and setting goals and setting baselines is a very positive thing. And especially when it comes to health and fitness, that happens to be tied with a lot of the New Year's resolutions and around this time of year. So I never want to deter anybody for wanting to become better and do better things with their health and fitness. I never want to say, oh, you picked the wrong time of year because it's tied to, you know, a bourgeois ideologies. I mean, I think that's not the right thing to do. I think we need to understand, you know, why a corporate America would want us to buy certain things and spend our money on certain things. But we also should embrace the fact that we're going through a period of reflection and transformation.
I'm going to play devil's advocate. And what if, would you say that big corporation is using resolutions for their benefit, or is it really a bourgeois construct, or is it really a construct of bourgeoisie?
Well, I think they do use it for their own advantage. I mean, but that could be true for many times throughout the year that you know, the powers that be try to push us towards consuming certain goods and investing in certain places. So we have to be able to read through that. And I think also too, that's a big part of the failure of the New Year's resolutions, is because people are whipped into this kind of excitement and there's no education to supplement that excitement. And the miseducation is deliberate, because the miseducation helps feed, you know, people to make bad decisions and to make decisions based off of emotion, you know, buying gym memberships, because of the hoopla of the New Year's resolution. So that is all true, but I think we also need to be confident that our folks, if given the education, can make critical analysis of the situation and make decisions that are really going to be better for them and not better for the beast.
Cool. Thank you, Ben. The next question, actually, you mentioned in the top of the show how you can submit questions. And I think almost everybody, not every single person who I asked, but those who submitted questions, I went ahead and asked them to ask their friends and families to also, if they wanted to ask, also submit a question. So this one actually came through Osiris, and the person asking the question is Jessica Napier from the Bronx.
Okay.
And she starts it off by saying pretty much that, I'm going to sum it up here, that during the holiday season, many people spend a lot of money, and are by the end of the year really almost, emotionally as well as financially drained, pretty much, right? So she's saying, how can I make sure that I continue my regimen during the month of January and on, being that I am so drained and now getting home so late and I just want to sleep all weekend?
Oh man, I can speak personally to this, and I'm sure many can. But I mean, this holiday is more than ever. I don't know if it's because of the new baby on the way that me and my partner Jenny are expecting, and having to, really cater to different families and multiple families. I mean, this holiday was so exhausting and stressful. I mean, financially stressful, thinking about buying presents for people and visiting different people and buying, things to, for different family get-togethers. All those things are very stressful. I mean, emotionally, I feel like I was, nonstop going places and, running from this place to that place and going long distances to get to family gatherings and all this kind of stuff. And more than ever, I felt that drain and that stress, and it definitely does knock you off your regimen. So I think we have to be prepared for that. And we have to not be so hard on ourselves when that happens, because that will happen for whatever reason. Maybe it's just a year where you're spending a lot of time with other folks, or you're traveling to them and they're not traveling to you, or there's more people in the family than ever before and you're buying more gifts or whatever. Whatever the case may be, I think we have to understand that this holiday season can be very stressful emotionally and financially, and we have to prepare for that. Now, if you didn't prepare for that and you're in January and you're like broke and you're making bad decisions and you're not in a workout regimen and all that kind of stuff, don't be so hard on yourself and allow yourself a process of trying to get back into the flow of things. So maybe before the holidays you were working out 4 days a week. Maybe now you're only working out 2 days a week. It's not that bad. Just give yourself time to recover and get back into the flow of things. And if you don't put that internal stress, then you'll be able to manage the external stress. Because I think that's what happens, is that the external world becomes so stressful and things are changing and moving, and sometimes we allow that to overcome us and we internalize it. But don't internalize it. Understand what it is and keep, steadfast to your goals and your principles, and just get back on, your regimen and your own pace, and don't be so hard on yourself, and things will be all right.
Yeah, I feel like we've not being hard on yourself is something that we definitely, as well as anything else, we preach very strongly. And it's because, in a sense, it happened already, right? And even though something in the past can drain you, and that's completely understandable, understanding that today's a new day and now I can create something better today is something that I feel is a really important karma, or a good, what's the word I'm looking for? Mantra. It's a good mantra. Yeah. Because if you keep living in the past, as important, again, as I mentioned earlier, as much as it can drain you, but too much energy on the past is only going to be a bump for the future, or for the present, rather.
Definitely.
So I think that's a great point here. So since we still have a few more questions, bro. So I think let's take another break, because it gives us another opportunity to put some good music for our audience.
Yeah, and I get to use the bathroom, so that's awesome.
Let's do it.
All right, peace.
Not together, but I mean, yeah, whatever. Why not?
Can you see it? The worst is over. The monsters in my head are scared of love. Falling people, listen up. It's never too late to change your luck. So don't let them steal your life. Don't let them break your stride. There is light on the other side, and you'll see all the raindrops falling through. It's a revolution, and we'll make it out tonight. It's a revolution. It's a Can you see it? The worst is over. The monsters in my head are scared.
All right, guys, so we're back, and we're still chipping away at this New Year's resolution Q&A, and I think this is a longer Q&A than usual, and I think for justifiable reasons. You know, this is a time of the year where a lot of people are trying to make some change in their lives, and you know, there's a lot of questions that arise, and I love that we can be a resource. And I don't mind if we go a little over, you know, our hour and 15 minutes that we usually do. If we go a little longer, it's okay, because this is an important time of the year, and we want to be a supportive kind of apparatus for people who are going into, you know, making some lifestyle changes. So, of course, we're joined by Osiris Flores, and we're doing the Q&A session where he's asking me questions that he's gathered on social media that I've never heard before. So, of course, if you have questions for our future show, our future Q&A shows, we do this Q&A show about every month or a month and a half. And on our website, revolutionaryfitness.org, you can actually go in, and on the side menu, on the right side, we actually post the question and a form in which you, or the topic rather, in a form where you can ask the questions for the topic, and you can, you know, do that all throughout the month and access as many questions as you want, and we'll answer as many as we can. So, Cyrus, we got a couple more left, right?
Yeah, let's do this. And real quick, just to, you know, Q&A also are important because these could be questions that maybe you yourself feel that you have an answer or have an approach, but maybe this can help someone else. So again, this is a resource not just for yourself, but also how can you pass this knowledge on to others, you know? So
Definitely.
Then this can help you become a resource for someone else. So let's keep going though. So Samantha Flores, yes, there is a relation, from Connecticut, from via email. She asked, my resolution is to eat less meat this year. Would eating meat every other month be a good way to push myself towards that goal?
You know, this is great that she actually put her resolution out there. I was waiting for this. We went through so many questions, and nobody's like putting their resolutions out there. So congratulations to Samantha for putting it out there and making it public. So now we're going to hold you to it.
Nice.
But I wrote about this in an article recently about how one can start making transitions towards lifestyle changes. And I talked about the consumption of meat and like adopting a more plant-based lifestyle. And I think the approach of not trying to do things overnight, I think is good. I think that's the spirit of her not, you know, believing that she could do it overnight is a realistic approach. And, you know, when I became a plant-based eater, I was 14, 15 years old. And I did it overnight, but that's because I was 14, 15 years old. So I didn't have that much, I don't want to say baggage, but I didn't have that much, I wasn't tied to the meat like people who have been eating meat for 20, 30 years. So it was a little, I wouldn't say easier because I went through my own particular challenges, but it was a different kind of thing. And I think when we're trying to make these big kind of lifestyle changes, like changing our diet, we need to take this kind of, small step approach. I would disagree, though, with the strategy that Samantha's proposing, this every other month kind of strategy, because that could really mean like, oh, I'll eat clean this month and next month, it's a free haven for whatever craziness I want to eat. If that's not going to work, you're going to continually like be yo-yoing and going back and forth. What I would say more so is determine what your percentage of meat intake is currently, or how many meals have meat in them. Is it once a day? Is it twice a day? Is it once a week currently? Whatever it is currently, I think that should be your baseline, and that you should be working if you're trying to make a transition to more plant-based diet, you should be working to cut out meat, maybe week to week or month to month. So maybe month 1 you're eating meat every day. So then month 2, maybe you're eating meat every other day. And then month 3, you're eating meat once or twice a week. And month 4, you're eating meat once a week. And, during that process, you should be constantly evaluating, do you feel better? Do you feel more energized? Or do you feel weaker? Because just because you read in a RevFit article that eating less meat was good doesn't necessarily mean it's good for you. So don't get caught up in like, oh, I'm going to go vegan or plant-based and blah, blah, blah. Really listen to what your body is saying. But again, I think it shouldn't be like this back and forth, but rather this gradual transition.
Nice. Very nice. Let's keep going. I was going to go in on that, but I'll keep going. Nicole Guerrero from Washington Heights, she asked via text, and actually Cassie Regan from Brooklyn also via text. They asked exactly the same question, but in a different wording. But pretty much is they find the biggest challenge with New Year's resolutions is keeping them fresh and exciting, even if the resolutions themselves are old. So how can you keep yourself from being discouraged when you're not reaching your goal of self-improvement fast enough?
Right. There's a couple things going on in this question. First off, I saw Cassie like a week or so ago. So what's up, Cassie? But I haven't seen Nicole in forever. So I just want to shout out Nicole.
She's taking her MCAT.
I know.
She said via her text, listen, after I'm done with MCAT, you're going to see, I'm going to go see my ref family a lot more. So it's fun to even shout her out. But yes.
That's what's up. All right, so Nicole, we're waiting for you, and good luck on your MCATs. So I think there's a couple things going on in their combined questions. And I think one is keeping it fresh. Well, first of all, I think people need to understand that change in health and fitness doesn't happen quickly. I know we like to think it does, and we might have seen examples in the media or our friends of these exceptions of quick transformations. Oh, I lost 20 pounds this month. I lost, watch The Biggest Loser, and everyone's losing 15 pounds a month or a week or some craziness like that. And that's just not the reality, and that's not safe, and it's just not the way it happens. When it comes to lifestyle changes and changing how you physically feel or look or making adaptations to your body, these things take weeks, if not months, if not years. So, first of all, going back to the earlier question, these needs to be realistic goals. If you're trying to make any kind of transformations with your body or lifestyle, realistic goals. And I think if you make realistic goals and they're small goals, that's a way to keep it fresh. Just off the jump, because it could be a new goal every 4 weeks. It could be, I'm trying to, accomplish, 2 pull-ups in the next 4 weeks, or I'm trying to, lose, so much body fat percentage in the next month or 2. And so that keeps it fresh. So setting small and realistic goals. And then on the flip side, I would also say people, should not look at their health and fitness practice, whether it's good nutrition or working out, as a form of entertainment. And I think a lot of us tie, especially food to entertainment. We eat food to entertain ourselves. We go out and we have dinner at special places and try new foods. And, we watch, all these cool recipes online. I mean, is a lot of it tied to entertainment, and I think we need to divorce those things. I think we need to view more not as a robot, but we need to view health and fitness more as a requisite for life. And so, if you're like bored with your diet or bored with your workout, I think you should evaluate what you're where you find entertainment and why you're looking for entertainment in these worlds. Now, that being said, I like to have fun when I work out, and I like to eat good things. So I'm not trying to knock people, but I think that shouldn't be the basis of how we define our transformation, because honestly, the most boring workouts and the most boring nutrition plans are the ones that work the best. And what I mean by boring is like the repetitive kind of just chipping away at it and doing it consistently. Those are the ones that really you see change in. And it becomes less boring when you accept that you just need to, chip away at it, and you finally see transformation. That's when boredom goes out the door and you're like super ecstatic and you're like loving it, so you're like packing your meals, you're planning out your meals, you're cooking a soup on Sundays for the rest of the week. You're doing the same exact workout every day for 4 weeks. And then all of a sudden, you reach your goals, your short-term goals, and you're ecstatic. And that's way more important than finding day-to-day entertainment with a workout or a meal.
Bro, I feel like for our audience, this is a very important point you just made. And I think that point is not said at all, about looking at exercising, working out, eating well to entertain you. And I think that, I hope this kind of like putting you on the spot, but I think that should be a blog post, something very important to expand on, because I feel as you were answering the question and you brought this up, it's so true. The happier you are is because you're reaching your goals, and you reach your goals when you stick to you adhere to your plan. So if your plan is to, be healthier, then that's gonna open up your happiness to do other things, because you're not, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? And you're finding entertainment in other things. And I think that this is a really, really good point to expand on. And also the small attainable goals is really, really the way to go, because when it's too big and you're not reaching it, then either you're gonna quit and move on to something, or move on to something else, But when you have something that's attainable and you reach it, then you're ready to move on to the next one.
Well, I would add onto that too. Like an example is blogging. For instance, like one of my resolutions last year was to blog more, and of course it's an ongoing thing. But like my goal is like to blog, a couple times a week. My exact plan currently is to blog every other day on my personal blog, and to try to do 2 to 3 blogs, guest blogging on other places, whether it's like Revolutionary Fitness Radio, revolutionaryfitness.org, or Liberation News, or a guest blog on something else, whatever. But like every time I sit down to write, I love writing, but every time I sit down to write, I'm not excited every time. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, like I got to put something together. I got something up. So that's not the actual act is not necessarily exciting. But when I finish that blog post and people start engaging it on social media and asking me questions, that's what gets me excited. So
Sure.
don't get caught up in the little, day-to-day things. Like, is this meal exciting? Is this plan exciting? Don't get caught up in that. Think about what's going to happen once you develop the product and you see the fruits from that product.
It's a great point, bro. The next question is from a very dear friend of mine. We go back to high school. Her name is Paris Barnett, from Brooklyn, and she asks via text. One of her, I don't know exactly if it's a resolution of hers, but I know that she's one of her high on her list is to learn multiple languages. So I think she's taking up Italian right now. and she's doing it through I think the name of the app is called Duolingo, and she's finding success with Italian right now through the app. And I think what she's getting at is that the app is giving her some sort of convenience that she didn't have by maybe signing up for an Italian class or something like that, right? So the question is, why is the level of convenience so important to whether we stick it out or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think this goes back to a couple of points that we brought up earlier. Big up to Paris. I haven't seen Paris in a long time, so hopefully she comes out to work out or something soon. But I think convenience, first of all, convenience is important in our society because we're taught that everything should be convenient. Everything should be at our hands and feet. That's kind of like the lies that we're told, right? We're told that, product should be, coming to you, via a drone, like aircraft or something through Amazon, like all this crazy stuff that we think we're somehow better off if we can get it quicker or something. I don't know. That's kind of the culture we live in. But I would say on a realistic approach is that working class people, poor people, we're very stressed out, and we got so many things to worry about, whether it's paying bills or being good friends or family members or just bettering ourselves. There's so many things that we're stressed out about, so many things. So especially when it comes to health and fitness or making any kind of philosophical commitments like learning a new language or things like this, just things to better ourselves. It's so hard. And I wrote an article recently on this is something we're going to bring up on a different show, but I wrote an article recently on like how to, or rather, is our social justice movement fit enough to take it to the next level? And I got a lot of good and bad feedback on this question, because many people were like, oh yes, it's great that we're talking about social justice activists being more fit, but a lot of people were like, oh, but there's a lot of circumstances in society that force us to be out of shape and to be unhealthy. And so I agree wholeheartedly that there's so much stuff in society that is forcing us to be unhealthy and to have bad habits. Being unhealthy and having bad habits makes us consumers of the goods that this society is providing for us. That's without a doubt. So when things are convenient, when you can get them through an app or you can find resources that you can tap into regularly, it's like a blessing. And so there is so many resources out there. We just have to find them. There's so many free resources out there, especially now with the internet, that we just have to find them. And once we do find them, we have to support them. So it's not only, like you find a good blog or a good podcast that you love, but you have to support that podcast or that blog that you love. So maybe it's engaging with them. Like, for instance, RevFit Radio. Maybe it's sending us a question for our Q&A show. That's a way to support our community and to be part of our community. Maybe it's a blogger that you then comment on their post. So feel, like when you do find these resources, that you have a sense of accountability and a social responsibility to them, and support them, because the more that we support these resources out there, these free resources especially, the more these free resources will be available to us and to others, and the better our society would be.
Yeah. And there's so much good content out there. The resources out there, and then they're just not being, exactly what you're saying, they're just not being supported, So through Twitter, Arlene Santana from Washington Heights, she's been saying it from when I first put the tweet out there about questions. And she's at mad questions, so I'm gonna choose two from the one she submitted. And so she actually is also putting her resolution out there. Is she wants to be? Well, I guess her resolution is to become healthier. But she's saying she's thinking about doing the master cleanse. How can I stick to that resolution, or what other ways can I start a new cycle of being healthy and active, other than through this cleanse? And she also she wants, if you can just add some tidbits on the master cleanse itself, whether it's a good idea or whether you recommend it or not.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I think the first part of her question of kind of like, what's a good reset button? I think that
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of people ask that question like, all right, I'm jacked up. How can I reset this process? And cleansing is definitely a great thing to do.
Hmm.
But for many, if you're in a very bad place right now, like maybe you're eating bad, or cleansing can be, if you don't have guidance during the cleanse, it could be a little bit too much. Too much in the sense that you either go through some negative experiences during the cleanse that you don't understand, and can turn you away from the cleanse or the process. Like, there's many cleanses where, if you haven't prepped correctly for the cleanse, you'll go through a lot of headaches and physical pain and discomfort, maybe vomiting and diarrhea, all this crazy stuff if you haven't prepped properly. So, like, you could do the master cleanse, and if you didn't prep properly or get guidance, and end in a dangerous place. And so recently we actually put a blog post on revolutionaryfitness.org by Drea Downs about the master cleanse, and she talked about her experience. And one of the things that she really pointed out in her blog piece was like, this is something that you really need to get supervision on. There's a book that she referred to in the blog. I forget the name of it, but it's like, doing the master cleanse by blah blah blah, whatever. And so she said that was a great resource to tap into. But I would say, if whatever cleanse or reset button you want to do, get some guidance on that, so it's not a negative experience and that you understand the process. Now, in terms of what reset kind of buttons I would recommend personally, I think it's really relative to where you are as an individual and where your habits are. I know Arlene personally, because she hits me up regularly about like, oh, should I be eating this and should I be doing this? So I would say the master cleanse might be a little bit too aggressive for where she is currently, because she hasn't gone through any, like, some smaller basic ones. I would say, to do another attempt at a 3 to 5 day green smoothie cleanse. Maybe try to do a whole week of just trying to consume more salads, or at least one salad a day. Things like that, where they're not too drastic, but you can kind of introduce yourself into the process. Because really, at the end of the day, what you're trying to do with these cleanses or pressing this restart button is put yourself on a kind of like a good footing going into the new year, going into this new period. A very, you want to go through a healing process that's going to set you up for success. A lot of these cleanses, though, again, like I said in the beginning, if you're not guided, they can not be healing, and they can be damaging, and they can be scary at times. So really get some guidance on that. And I know that Arlene's probably like, oh my God, so what do I do? I was committed to do this. I would say, hit Drea up. Drea's down to support people who want to go through the master cleanse. If you're interested in going through the green smoothie cleanse, definitely, hit up the RevFit Plant Strong page, and there's some cool resources on there. And of course, hitting up the master trainers through RevFit, and you can get some good resources that way. But, find the resources that you can tap into and get that supportive apparatus.
I'm currently hitting the reset button right now. I started my first day of a 5-day green smoothie cleanse, and consciously, because I know that in Tokyo I went in. I was a fat ass, and I enjoyed every single, I was gonna say spoon, but it was all chopsticks. Yeah. So right now, I'm hitting the reset button. So yeah, Arlene, please hit us up, because we definitely have the resources and the material from the green smoothie cleanses that we've done in the past. So her second question is, since remaining healthy is one of the resolutions, how can I stick to it during the cold months when I go into hibernation mode, since I do not enjoy the cold? And to connect with that, she asked, what are safe ways to prepare for a run in the cold?
So the first question I think was also answered with the Mabel question.
Oh, that's true. Yes.
So we can refer back to that. I want to
No, that was my bad.
Yeah. But in terms of the working out in the cold or running in the cold, I think, there's a couple precautions that you need to take. I mean, first of all, if it's really frigid, like it is out this week in New York City, where it's like in the teens, I would second guess going outside and maybe defer to doing an indoor workout. Not because, I mean, maybe you like working out in this cold, but there's a couple things that can happen in this cold. It's harder to get oxygen in this kind of cold, because of what the coldness is doing to the hydrogen in H2O and to the oxygen. What it's doing, it's freezing it up. It's making it a little harder to breathe in this cold. Also, too, if your extremities are cold, it's gonna make it harder for you to excel, and you might compromise on certain movement patterns. So like if you're running and your feet get cold, for instance, it could affect your movement pattern. So there's a couple of things. I mean, but if you dress properly and you have good layers on and all that kind of stuff, you have gloves and thick socks and all that good stuff, you should be all right in the cold. But in any case, I would say, if you can work out in your crib, why not work out in your crib? If you want to go running, why don't you just do jump roping in your house? If that's not an option, then you can go running, but just be conscious of wearing the right layers and making sure, especially around your chest area, all that stuff is nice and warm and insulated, and your head is insulated, your hands, your feet, all that good stuff. But it's hard. It's hard when you live in I was just talking to one of my comrades from Los Angeles, and they're like, "Oh, it's 72 degrees out here, blah blah blah." I'm like, "Go to hell," you know what I mean? Like, it's 16 degrees in New York City right now. So is that, and that also too. People talk about like seasonal depression. That's real. Like, people get depressed and moody and don't want to do things in the winter, and it's like, I remember when I first started getting into shape when I was around like 20 years old. Danny, many folks know in the RevFit community, Danny Shaw, he would pull me out in the middle of the winter and say, "Yo, we got to go for a run." So we would go for a run around a track, and at the time I was, just above 200 pounds. And if people know me, I'm usually around like 180, 185 pounds. So 200 pounds with like a high body fat percentage is really big for me. So I was very uncomfortable, and I would literally run around a track, and I couldn't get around the whole track. That's how out of shape I was. And it was the winter time. And I remember Danny saying to me, it's tough during the winter, but just think about it. If you can do it now, if you can push yourself in the winter during these hard times, if you can wake up early in the cold, and if you can go to the gym when it's nasty out, and if you can find inspiration when it's hard, when it's nice out, it's just going to be like easy. And it's gonna be breezy, and that was inspiration for me. Like, let me just put in the work now, because when external circumstances make it easier, it's just gonna be that much more enjoyable.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I'm gonna remember that next time I'm in my bed and I don't want to get up.
Word.
Seriously, that's a good one. Thanks. Cool. So Natalie Serrano from Washington Heights, and she'll kill me if I don't say Via Astoria, Queens. She asked through Twitter, what would you say are the biggest mistakes made when making a New Year's resolution?
Right. So I kind of talked about this a little earlier about, making your resolutions too big, or thinking financial commitments to resolutions are going to help you stick to them. But to kind of build on those themes, I wrote an article recently on like some ways to stick to your resolutions. But I think some of the other errors that people make, and I would encourage people to read that blog, that's on revolutionaryfitness.org. But I think some of the other mistakes that people make when it comes to resolutions is that people, again, think that they can make this drastic change very easily. And they kind of say, "Oh, New Year's resolution, I'm gonna try to get there within the first couple of weeks." And really, a New Year's resolution lasts throughout the whole year. Mm-hmm. The New Year's resolution is not just for January 1st through 31st. It's from January 1st to December 31st. And so if you have this long-term perspective and realize that it's going to be, a step-by-step process, I think that's going to set yourself up for success rather. Mm-hmm. And I also think like people, like we've been talking about constantly, people need to set up a game plan. So it's not just like, oh, I want to start eating more plant-based, but I want to start eating, this percentage of my food plant-based by this date. And I think making those very concrete goals is important. And then also too, we talked about earlier, having measurable success. I think a lot of people, as they're fighting or battling to reach their goal, they are not measuring throughout the process, and that's another failure that people can make resolutions. But more importantly, I think the by far the biggest mistake people make when they make resolutions is they make these very broad resolutions. I want to get fit. I want to lose weight. I want to, look better. All these broad kind of proclamations don't mean anything. You need to be very, very concrete on what you want to do. And that process of constructing this concrete goal can be very educational. Because maybe you say, I want to be fit, but you don't really know what that means yet. And then you start thinking about it and you say, oh, maybe that means bringing down my weight, or maybe it means fitting into the certain size of jeans, or maybe it means doing this certain amount of push-ups, or maybe it means running this certain distance. And that's when the process really starts taking life. So number one thing that people need to do from listening to this podcast and going forward is set more definitive and concrete goals, and not keep these broad goals about just getting fit and getting healthier and feeling better, because these things don't really mean anything in the long run.
Yeah. A lot of people would say that big help is to write your goals down. Is that something you were saying?
Yeah, I've always advocated, I'm big on journaling. It could be physically writing it in a journal. I think that's a great practice for many different reasons, but it could also be online. It could be blogging. It can be writing posts, periodically on social media that you can then refer back to later. But I definitely think it needs to be documented, because what your goal is today, you might start the process and go through like a bunch of transformations up and down, back and forth. And then 6 months from now, if you don't remember what your initial goal was, then how can you really like have, introspection on it? You have to, so many times we lose our goals. We start with this goal and you're like, oh, what was I trying to do originally? Or, where was I 6 months ago? You totally forget. So it has to be documented.
Yeah. Well, Mark Caceres from Queens, and I kind of consciously left this question out for last. He asked through Facebook, if you're going to do something, just do it. That was pretty much what he was getting at. He said you don't have to wait for some sort of planetary alignment. So he asks, why do we continue to make resolutions?
And I think this is a great question to finish on. I would add though that Mark and Ben are the only males that ask questions, and I think there needs to be more males asking questions and concerned with the health and fitness. I think there so many times men become so egotistical they don't want to ask for help or feel like this is not a space for them, and I think they need to get involved in this process as well. That's a side note. But Mark, what's up? How you been? I think the planetary alignment, like we talked about before, the bourgeois construct, whatever it is, I think that's secondary. I think, we shouldn't knock people for making resolutions or using this time of the year to want to make change. But I do think that, if we want to make change in our lives, especially when we're talking about health and fitness, and we want to impact the health and fitness of our communities as well, that it needs to be an ongoing introspection and an ongoing process of evaluating what we're doing day to day and how we're contributing to society day to day. And, again, I'm a big advocate of New Year's being like a time for self-reflection, but I also personally, like I said earlier in the podcast, don't make my own New Year's resolutions. So it could be any time of the year. It could be your birthday, it could be May Day, it could be Halloween. It could be some abstract date throughout the year that you use for self-reflection. But I don't want to knock the process of doing self-reflection, measuring where you are currently, and setting goals, because this practice is so healthy and is so positive for growth. And there really cannot be growth if there's not measurement, evaluation, and goal setting. Because if you don't do those things, if you just kind of say, oh, I'm just going to go with the flow of the tide, then that's anarcho, and your life will never, your life will never really make any progress, and you'll kind of just be going with the tide of society. And again, like we said earlier, society's tide is not what we want to be flowing with. So we want to create our own destiny and have self-determination for our own selves. And when it comes to health and fitness, that happens to be tied to New Year's resolutions. And again, I don't want to knock that. I want to embrace that process because I think people need to go through that healing process. But, it could be any time of the year. At the end of the day, what I think people should take away from this Q&A session is that they need to, understand who they are currently, not be hard on themselves, set goals, attempt to hit those goals, measure the process and trying to obtain those goals, reevaluate their program or their strategy to get to that goal. And if they don't get to that goal, what can they do to achieve success? What can they do to, should they be getting outside resources? Should they be getting a mentor? Should they be getting a trainer or something like that? And evaluate why these goals aren't being reached. Or is it some internal thing? And this process is healing, is beneficial. It's what promotes growth. And if we do this as a community, like we do through RevFit Radio, like through this Q&A, this is a community effort. We're coming together as a community, asking questions, inquiring, tapping into resources. And if this is the continual process, we're going to see great results, whether it's our health and fitness or it's just obtaining higher results in society as a whole.
No, I agree. I personally really, New Year's is no secret. New Year's is my favorite, holiday. And not exactly because of the resolutions, but the one thing I do like about this collective effort of making resolutions is that resolutions is a time that people are being self-reflective. And I like that because it's pretty much what we look to do when we meditate. And I feel that meditation is something that as a collective or as a, it's not popularized. People don't regularly meditate. And I think that meditation is very important. And the fact that people can do it, it shows that people should be continuing to do it. You know what I mean? If you follow that thought?
Definitely.
Is that if you are making these New Year's resolutions at the beginning of the year, then just like you're saying, then continue that throughout the year. Continue, and I feel that meditation allows you to take that moment to reflect on where you are in the moment, but also it allows you that if you did make resolutions, when you're meditating, it allows you to do that reflection. Am I reaching it? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And is it time for you to really take a moment for yourself and catch up in a sense with yourself, So I think that if it is or if it wasn't or if you need to make a resolution, but I definitely want to encourage our audience to take up meditation and whatever it is, but just take a moment to just be with yourself and reflect on how things are going pretty much.
Definitely. Well, I have one last thing to add. That was the last question, right?
Yeah, we done.
So the last thing I want to add is, many times, during this time of year, people are thinking about forgiveness of friends or family members. They're like calling people and saying things are crushed. We're good. Let's start afresh. There's this feeling of like kind of wanting to get rid of all the negative energy from the year prior and just move on and be a bigger and better person. And I also think that forgiveness, or whatever you want to call it, should be applied to us, to ourselves. We should forgive ourselves for maybe not sticking to our goals or achieving what we wanted to achieve in that given year, or maybe we made mistakes and we had setbacks, and we need to forgive ourselves for doing that. Because what I find many times is that people who are anti-resolution or anti-setting goals are people who have done resolutions or goals so many times in the past and have failed at these resolutions and goals, and they become deterred and they become disenchanted with the process, and they kind of say, resolutions and setting goals, that's for people who aren't really, living in reality, and, that's not going to change anything because they've been burned so many times by themselves, really. And so I think if we start this process of really this self-reflection and healing, and again, like we said earlier, not being hard on ourselves, understanding that we're going to make mistakes, understanding that society is making it super duper hard for us to be successful and to flourish as human beings. If we understand all these things, then when we, have this self-reflection and set these new goals or reset goals that we had last year, we're not hard on ourselves, and we believe in ourselves, and we encourage ourselves, and we find the social support, and we find the mentorship, and we tap into these resources online and in person with our friends, whatever it is. Don't become deterred from this process of healing, of growing, and forgive yourself if you have had setbacks, and you took one step back. But remember, it's always about moving forward, and it won't always be a forward process. There will be setbacks. There will be times that you derail from the original mission. But if you get back on the horse and you reset your goals and you keep valiant towards them, you'll have much success. But don't become deterred, and always fight to be a better and healthier person in the future.
That's beautiful and very inspirational because of how real it is. A lot of times, a lot of inspiration seems very unattainable. This big poetic ways of saying it, and what you're saying is something that is very practical and very real, and I hope that it inspires our audience. And very quickly, one of the things about spending New Year's in Tokyo that I was really looking forward to was that they do it very differently than we do here, and I won't say we as a collective, but the most, because as I was saying in the beginning, I personally have always spent New Year's with my family, and that's always been a very regular for me. Only until maybe my mid-20s that I leave to go to a party after the ball dropped or after midnight. But but before that, it was always like, hey, I'm staying with my family. We party with my family until we in the morning. So this year, being away was a big deal, but the beauty behind it is that in Japan, they actually spend New Year's in family. Like, it's weird for them to go out and partying. Like, they see what we do here in the United States and they frown upon it. We were at a bar and there were only 4 people there. And when the ball dropped, like, they were actually weirded out because we did do the countdown just because it's so like in us, right? But they were weirded out that we were doing the countdown. The 4 people who were there, and the streets were super. Like, I even posted a picture on my Instagram because it was super quiet. You wouldn't even think that it was New Year's. But in Japan, they have the tradition is to spend the time with the family, bring the New Year with the family, and then the following day, they go to the temple. Whether you're religious or not, and you don't have to be a Buddhist, but as a tradition, still non-religious people in Japan still go to the temple because they put a lot of emphasis on the first time you do whatever it is you do. So whether it be the first workout you do, whether it be the first time you go to work, whatever it is, but the very first time you do it on the year, they put a lot of emphasis and a lot of importance on it. So for them, the first day of the year should be a day of love, of spending time with your loved ones, of self-reflecting, of going to the temple, and it's a lot more spiritual. And even though I was away from my immediate family and my friends, it was very comforting and reassuring to be in such a space that values love and family so much, so I kind of just wanted to share that just because of an experience that I just had, and that what we see here and what we practice here doesn't always have to be the way it is. You know what I mean?
Definitely a great way to end it. I think we said a lot throughout this one. I think people can really start reevaluating evaluating the New Year's resolutions. I would say though, if people have particular New Year's resolutions, say they want to do a certain goal and they've already formulated in their heads, but they have some questions about that process, that they should definitely, reach out to us about that. And I think the best ways for people to reach out to us is either to hit us up via social media or to actually comment on the website where this blog post goes up. So for this episode, the show notes will be revolutionaryfitness.org/036. So if you go to the comment section and you put what your particular goal is, we'll definitely respond there and give you some feedback on your goal. And if it's more than just, some advice, you could definitely hit us up and we'll, plug you into some resources that we have for you to reach those goals more successfully. But at the end of the day, we're a community. RevFit is, we're not like other health and fitness entities out there where we're trying to preach things and tell you how to do things, but rather we want to be supportive and we want to, provide our expertise in your process. So, reach out to us however you can and we'll continue to build. And of course, on the next Q&A session, ask all the questions that you can and we'll continue building on there. And we have there's an announcement I wanted to put out. Obviously we're on iTunes, we're on Stitcher, we're on these things. You should drop comments and put your feedback on those venues as well, because that gives us more popularity on iTunes and Stitcher and all that stuff. But we recently just backed up every single episode of RevFit Radio onto YouTube, so that if you are not savvy on how to download a podcast or how to listen to a podcast, you can go onto YouTube, onto the RevFitNYC YouTube page, and you can, view or listen to, rather, all the episodes of Revolutionary Fitness Radio. So we have all 35, now 36 episodes on there. And it's in the same playlist, RevFit Radio, when you go to the RevFitNYC page. And it's great. It's a great resource that people can tap into. I know everyone's on YouTube, so we've already gotten a lot of feedback from people who can't listen to it on iTunes for whatever reason, and YouTube is a great venue for them. So feel free to do that and drop comments on the YouTube pages so that we can respond to you there as well.
Nice, bro. Well, it's been fun. Definitely really enjoyed this one a lot, and look forward to the next one.
For sure. All right, speak to you in a couple weeks, bro.
All right, man. Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year. Peace.
Don't sweat the technique. Don't sweat the technique. Let's trace the hits and check the file. Let's see who bit the dissect the style. I flip the script so it can't get filed. At least not now, it'll take a while. I change the pace to